The traditional practice of royal estates claiming assets from deceased individuals who passed away without a will or known heirs has been a long-standing means for various monarchs to amass wealth throughout history. The concept, rooted in the Latin term bona vacantia, translating to unoccupied goods, addresses the scenario when someone dies intestate, leaving their assets without a clear inheritor. In England and Wales, the default rule stipulates that when an individual passes away without a will or known heirs, their assets flow into the treasury. However, exceptions exist in parts of England linked historically to specific royal estates, notably the duchies of Lancaster and Cornwall. The duchies of Lancaster and Cornwall, managed by appointed executives, oversee vast holdings encompassing farmlands, hotels, offices, and retail spaces. These estates operate to generate what's perceived as a private income for the reigning monarch and the direct successor to the throne. Operating under the bona vacantia system, the Duchy of Cornwall, for instance, can claim the estates of individuals who die in Cornwall without leaving a will, particularly if no relatives can be located to inherit the assets. Similarly, the Duchy of Lancaster exercises its claim when the last known residence of deceased individuals falls within the historical boundaries of the Palatine County of Lancashire. This historical territory included present-day Lancashire, parts of Merseyside, Greater Manchester, Cheshire, and Cumbria. Additionally, the duchy seizes the remaining assets of companies at the time of their liquidation. These customs' origins trace back to medieval times when the duchies of Lancaster and Cornwall were established. In 1265, Henry II confiscated lands from a rebellious feudal lord and bestowed them upon his second surviving son, Edmund, forming the Duchy of Lancaster. Charters issued in 1399 and 1485 specified that the profits from this duchy would automatically benefit the reigning monarch, presenting a significant financial asset for the ruling dynasty. Despite controversies surrounding these practices, the duchies persist as substantial financial sources for royal family members, with sizable annual payments made, such as the Duchy of Lancaster's payment of £26 million to Charles last year. Buckingham Palace asserts that such funds should be perceived as the recipient's private income. In previous eras, the Crown theoretically could claim the entire estate of someone dying without heirs, since all land in England was considered Crown property. However, this power was relinquished in 1830, except for the duchies of Lancaster and Cornwall, which retained the right to collect the estates of individuals who died without a will within their historic domains. The formalization of this practice into law occurred in 1925 through the Administration of Wills Act, which contained a provision granting legal authority to the duchies to claim the assets of deceased individuals without known heirs. Curiously, records regarding the reasoning behind this decision are absent in parliamentary debates or government archives, leaving the rationale behind this legal provision unknown. Throughout history, the duchy's entitlement to bona vacantia assets remained a lesser-known aspect of Britain's antiquated constitutional system, occasionally stirring controversy. During World War II, King George VI reportedly benefited from increased revenue generated from bona vacantia due to the deaths of soldiers and airmen, with the funds ultimately flowing through his duchy to the monarchy. It wasn't until the 1980s that the duchy announced a shift, claiming that funds derived from bona vacantia would no longer directly enrich the monarch, but would instead be directed toward charitable causes. Yet due to minimal public oversight, verifying the validity of this assertion remained challenging until more recent times. The financial dealings of the king's estate, specifically concerning the £14 million in bona vacantia funds not yet donated to charity, have drawn scrutiny and raised questions about the allocation and usage of these funds. The Duchy of Lancaster, responsible for collecting assets from individuals who pass away without a will or known heirs, covers regions like Lancashire, parts of Merseyside, Greater Manchester, Cheshire, and Cumbria. This estate, generating private income for the monarch, contributes to the maintenance of the Savoy Chapel in London, which stands on land once occupied by a palace demolished during the 1381 peasant uprising. Despite claims that the proceeds from ownerless assets, after deducting expenses and liabilities, are intended for charitable causes, particularly for the chapel, investigations reveal a disparity. Reports suggest that a significant portion of these funds is diverted to refurbish properties owned by the royal estate, rented out for profit. Over recent decades, the duchy reportedly amassed £61.8 million from Bona Vacantia funds, with only £9.3 million, approximately 15%, actually channeled towards charitable purposes. Questions linger regarding the whereabouts of an additional £14 million, earmarked for charity but not yet donated, an issue the duchy has been unwilling to elucidate. Analysis of the duchy's accounts over the past decade sheds light on the allocation of these funds. Around 13%, £8.6 million, went to the Overdue Claims Fund, providing for potential heirs who might come forward in the future. Furthermore, a substantial portion, approximately £29.5 million, was allocated to administrative costs and historical obligations. However, the exact breakdown of these obligations, beyond the Savoy Chapel and administrative expenses like legal fees, remains obscure. Notably, spending on maintaining castles and historical monuments has seen a considerable uptick in recent years. Supposedly, after deducting administrative expenses and historic liabilities, the remaining funds are slated for charitable distribution. 3 registered charities, including the Duchy of Lancaster Charitable Foundation, have been named beneficiaries. However, discrepancies arise as only a fraction of the surplus finds its way to these charities. The Duchy of Lancaster Charitable Foundation, the oldest of the 3, received £1.7 million in Bona Vacantia funds over a decade. This foundation supports various charitable endeavours in regions such as Lancashire, Greater Manchester, and Merseyside. Allocation included grants for youth work, school bursaries, church-related activities, and even contributions to the Prince's Trust, albeit a minimal amount. Similarly, the Duchy of Lancaster Jubilee Trust, primarily catering to educational initiatives, received £5.4 million from these proceeds since 2013. Notably, a vast majority of these disbursements went towards the maintenance of the Savoy Chapel. The Duke of Lancaster Housing Trust, established to provide affordable rural housing, received £3.3 million between 2011 and 2013. Intriguingly, this trust has significant ties to the duchy, with several properties purchased from the duchy itself. While these 3 charities received a total of £9.4 million from Bona Vacantia funds, £14 million remains unaccounted for, prompting queries about its allocation. The duchy's refusal to clarify the status of these funds or their potential use in refurbishing the royal estate further amplifies the ongoing scrutiny. In summary, the intricate flow of Bona Vacantia funds from the estate of deceased individuals to the Duchy of Lancaster and its subsequent allocation to charitable causes, administrative expenses, and potentially the upkeep of the royal estate, presents a complex financial narrative that begs for transparency and accountability from the royal establishment. Dear friend, if you like everything new about the royal family and don't want to miss all the novelties, subscribe to our channel and like it. By doing so, you take part in our development. We work for you.